So thank you for all for being here, and thank everybody on YouTube for joining us. And we're continuing on with the Lalitavistara Sutra, the play in full. So we're on chapter 19. Last time we read, we recited up to 19.17. We recited 19.17. Tonight we start with 19.18. So if you missed anything, you want to go back, you can find it in our YouTube channel, our discussion, which was, I think, always interesting. Does anybody have any comments or questions about anything that we've talked about, or something new that we need to talk about before we get started with the recitation? Okay, then I'd like to draw everybody's attention once again to 19.11, because I think out of that section that we read last time, this was the most significant, teaching of the meaning of what was happening, what was coming together with the Bodhisattva. And here it mentions the 10 powers, the fourfold fearlessnesses, and the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha. So remember that the Bodhisattva is our example of what it is to become Buddha, of what it is to be on the path. He's giving an elucidation of what it is to be on the path, the way he experienced it, and this is what he's sharing with us. So these 3 points here are very, very important for the preparation and what the goal is, to have in the preparation, to have a goal. And this is part of that goal. This is part of the method that he's sharing with us. So it's very important. So I think what we ought to do, I presume everybody's got your book. So if you can, I'm going to recite this again, and you recite along with me. Keep your microphones muted so that we don't have feedback and so on. But it's very important so to underline this and for you to experience this vibration of what this is, and perhaps go back and look at this when you have more time to research this. And let me point out that the 10 powers is explained in our glossary on G662. So you can go back and you can look at this. And then the 4 fearlessnesses are G199. You can go back and look at that. And then the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha are G169. So you can go back and reference. So in the meantime, we're going to recite this now together out loud. You're reciting it for your own benefit right now. The Bodhisattva, who is like the great Brahma, proceeds to the seat of awakening with the desire to awaken to unexcelled, perfect, and complete Buddhahood in order to tame the armies of Mara. He proceeds in order to perfectly accomplish the 10 powers, the fourfold fearlessnesses, and the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha. His aim is to turn the great wheel of Dharma and utter the lion's great roar. With the gift of Dharma, he will satisfy all sentient beings. He will purify the eye of Dharma for all sentient beings and annihilate all his opponents together with their doctrines. He goes to the seat of awakening to demonstrate the fulfillment of his previous vows and to gain a ruler's complete mastery over all phenomena. Friends, for this reasons, you should pay homage to the Bodhisattva and joyfully assist him in every way possible. So this is a great, great suggestion. Any comments or questions? Okay.
I have a question about the lion's roar.
Yes.
Because I mean, do you think that's meant like literally, like what Guru Padmasambhava kind of like did in during his time, or yeah, or is it like that literal kind of call for awakening?
Well, Bernie may have something to add to this, but I think generally, um, when there's references to a master who is speaking the Dharma, who is teaching, who is giving instructions and so on, it's like a lion's roar because it's courageous, it's powerful, it has it has compassion in it, and so it is something that penetrates everyone who hears it. So it's like a lion's roar through the jungle, is kind of like that. So it's a great analogy, I think, for the voice of the Dharma, whoever is uttering it, to speak like a lion's roar.
Uh,
Bernie, do you have any comment?
sure. As I recall, it's a metaphor, of course. And the metaphor, I think it's explained at some point in the scripture that, but I can't remember the exact location, that when a lion roars in the jungle, all the other animals of the jungle become silent after hearing the lion's roar. And the metaphor is that the teaching of the Buddha is just so persuasive that those who would disagree with it are reduced to silence after hearing the Buddha's explanation.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. So I look at it that it's a courage system. What we're developing is this courage of the system, of structure, of the Dharma, of the path, what it is. And as we are, as we get closer and closer to that, it becomes stronger and stronger within us to be able to recognize the power of the path. All right, so let's begin with this reading. So, Brendan, would you read first? We're going to go through the rest of chapter 19. So we're going to start on 19.18. So Brendan will begin with that, read the first page. And then the second page, Zara, will you read the second page, please? And then after Zara, then Bernie, would you read the third page? And then Kunga, read the fourth page. And I'll read the fifth page. There's, wait a minute, I'm missing somebody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Probably Alex, if he stays awake.
Alex. I'm sorry, Alex.
By then.
Sorry, Alex. So you read the fifth page, Alex. And I'll read the sixth page. And then we'll keep that order until we finish this. So I think we'll all get to read twice. I think there's 12 pages in this next section. And as always, while you're reciting this, if you have things that you have questions about, make a mark or something like that in your book so we can go back and talk about it. And please try and read it slowly and carefully, pronouncing every word as clearly as you can. And because we're doing this not just for ourselves who have the book in front of us, but for those people who are listening later on YouTube or something. And if we go through too fast, we tend to muddle the words and it's hard to understand. So this is so it's important to be able to do it slowly and carefully, as if you're reading it for an 8-year-old child.
Lance, it's 19.18. Is that correct? The first verse that I'm to read?
Yes, please. 19.18 is where you start, and then you're continuing that page.
Perfect. Okay.
And then when the verses carry over to the next page, continue to finish that particular verse.
All right.
All right. So when you're ready, Brandon, please go ahead.
Monks, the great Brahma, who presides over the trikalakasm, then made in a single moment all the worlds in the great trilokasm the same. The world had now become smooth like the palm of a hand. There was no longer any gravel or rocks, and instead the world was filled with jewels, pearls, cat's eye gems, conch shells, crystals, corals, gold, and silver. He covered this entire world of the great trikalokasm in soft green grass, curled to the right in the pattern of a swastika, soft as the finest cloth and pleasant to the touch. At that moment, all the great oceans had become as peaceful as dry land, and all the beings who live in the waters had become free from any harm. When all the worldly guardians in the 10 directions, such as Indra and Brahma, saw how beautiful the world had become, they decided to venerate the Bodhisattva by adorning 100,000 Buddha realms in the same way. All other bodhisattvas who are beyond the world of humans and gods also wish to venerate the Bodhisattva, and therefore they adorn the limitless Buddha realms in the 10 directions with an array of offerings. All these Buddha realms, even though they were adorned in different ways, now appeared as one single Buddha realm. All the space between the worlds had disappeared, as had the encircling black mountains and the smaller and greater perimeter walls. All these Buddha realms could be seen permeated with the light streaming from the Bodhisattva. At the seat of awakening, there were 16 gods who guarded the place. Their names were Utkalan, Sutkalan, Prajapati, Surabala, Kirala, Supratishita, Mahadara, Avabhashakra, Vimala, Dharmasavra, Dharmaketu, Siddhapatra, Apratantra, Mahavuya, Sila Visudantara, and Padma Prabha. It was these 16 gods, all of whom had attained irreversible patience, who guarded the seat of awakening. As a way to venerate the Bodhisattva, they had adorned the seat of awakening. At a distance of 80 leagues, they had encircled the place with railings built in 7 rows. Palm trees were also placed in 7 circles, and a 7-fold lattice with bells of precious stones enfolded it. All of this was surrounded with 7 threads made of precious materials.
The seat of awakening was covered with cloth made of gold from the Jambu River, a cloth studded with 7 precious gems and woven with a golden thread. It was bestrewn with lotuses of gold from the Jambu River, scented with aromatic essences and covered by a jewel canopy. All the beautiful and excellent trees that grow and are venerated in all the different worlds and the 10 directions, including the worlds of gods and humans, now manifested at the seat of awakening. Likewise, all the different species of the flowers that grow in the water as well as on land manifested there at the seat of awakening. Moreover, the bodhisattvas in all the various worlds and the 10 directions now became visible at the seat of awakening, adorning the place with their immeasurable accumulations of merit and wisdom. In this way, the gods who guarded the seat of awakening magically manifested such displays at that place. They were so magnificent that when the gods, Nagas, Yakshas, Gandharvas, and demigods witnessed them, they began to conceive of their own abodes as nothing more than charnel grounds. As they saw the displays, they felt great respect and exclaimed with joy, "How great! What an inconceivable manifestation of meritorious ripening this is!" At the Bodhi tree itself there were 4 deities, Venu, Valgu, Samanas, and Ojapati. These 4 deities of the Bodhi tree also wished to venerate the Bodhisattva, and therefore they modeled the Bodhi tree to give it perfect roots, trunks, branches, leaves, flowers, and fruits, as well as perfect height and circumference. It was beautiful, nice to behold, wide, and with its height of 80 palm trees and corresponding circumference very imposing. This was indeed a magnificent and beautiful tree. It was encircled by jewel platforms that were built in 7 rows. Jewel palm trees were also placed around it in 7 circles, and a 7-fold lattice with bells of precious stones enfolded it. All this was surrounded with 7 threads made of precious materials that formed the outer ring. Like the coral tree of the Kavadora tree, this was a tree that one could never tire of beholding. This place where the Bodhisattva was to take his seat with the intention of attaining full and complete awakening had become the essence of indestructible diamond, harder than any diamond in the great Trikala chasm.
Monks, as the Bodhisattva was walking toward the seat of awakening, rays of light streamed from his body. The light pacified all the lower realms and caused all the unfortunate states to cease. All the painful feelings of beings in the lower realms came to a halt. All beings with impaired faculties now recovered their senses. Anyone who suffered from disease was healed. Anyone feeling discomfort attained happiness. All who were struck with fear found release. Anyone living in bondage was freed from his or her ties. Anyone suffering from poverty discovered wealth. All the people tormented by disturbing emotions found release from their anguish. Those who were starving had their stomachs filled. All the ones who were parched were relieved of their thirst. Pregnant women gave birth easily. Those who were old and weak gained perfect strength. At that moment, all sentient beings were relieved of the harms inflicted by attachment, anger, ignorance, wrath, greed, cruelty, ill will, envy, and jealousy. At that moment, no one experienced dying, moving to the next life, and taking birth. At that moment, everyone engendered love, altruism, and a feeling that all beings are each other's mothers and fathers. This can be expressed in verse, all the way to the hell of ultimate torment. The hell beings presented an horrible sight. These beings had their suffering pacified and experienced feelings of happiness. The beings born as animals, which harm each other in countless ways, were touched by the light of the Lord, and for their good gave rise to a loving mind. Spirits, as many as there are in the world, pained by hunger and thirst, discovered food and drink through the power of the Bodhisattva. All the unfortunate states came to a halt, and the lower realms dried out. All beings gained happiness and were fulfilled with divine pleasure. Those without eyes and ears, and all others with impaired faculties, regained their full senses and obtained beautiful limbs.
Attachment and anger and other disturbing emotions that harm beings. In that moment, all these disturbing emotions were pacified, and all beings were filled with happiness. The ones who had lost their minds regained their composure. Those living in poverty found wealth. Those stricken with sickness were healed. Those who were bound were freed. There was no miserliness nor animosity, no ill will or strife. All beings interacted in harmony, their minds full of loving kindness. Just as a father and mother cherished their only child, at that moment all beings felt parental love for each other. The web of the Bodhisattva's light rays streamed out all around in the 10 directions and illuminated an inconceivable number of realms as numerous as grains of sand in the Ganges. The black mountains and the surrounding perimeter walls disappeared, and all the vast worlds now appeared as one. They could be seen as clearly as the palm of a hand, composed of all kinds of jewels. In order to venerate the Bodhisattva, all realms were well adorned. The attendant at the seat of awakening were a group of 16 gods. Up to a distance of 80 leagues, they adorned the seat of awakening. All great displays in all the limitless millions of realms now manifested at this place by the power of the Bodhisattva.
Alex? Your microphone is muted, Alex.
Thank you. We are 1939.
19.39.
Okay. When gods and humans witnessed this display,
No,
they were
1939.
the gods, Nagas, Yakshas, Kinnaras, and Mahagragas now came to think of their celestial palaces as nothing more than charnel grounds. When gods and humans witnessed this display, they were filled with amazement. How great is this manifestation of merit, which results in such an auspicious juncture? Without any effort, whether physical, verbal, or mental, all the Bodhisattva's goals, wishes, and intentions were fully accomplished. Even the wishes of others were fulfilled through his actions in the past. The ripening of those actions now produced with such perfect results. The four deities at the seat of awakening adorned the seat of awakening to make it even more supreme than the heavenly coral trees. The displays at the seat of awakening were created by these four deities. To describe their qualities in words would be utterly impossible. Monks, the light that streamed from the body of the Bodhisattva illuminated the abode of Kalika, the king of Nagas. The light was pure and stainless and gave rise to joy as it satisfied the bodies and minds that it touched. It cleared away all disturbing emotions and brought joy, happiness, trust, and supreme enjoyment to all sentient beings. When Kalika, the king of Nagas, saw how the light illumined his own abode, he spoke these verses in front of his retinue. I see a light like that of Krakuchanda, or the brightness of Kanakamuni. It is like seeing the stainless and faultless light of Kashyapa, the Dharma king. Surely a being with supreme features, helpful activity, and wisdom, light is here. That is why his abode of mine is bright. This is why this abode of mine is bright and adorned with this golden light.
Up to now, our isolated home has been filled with darkness as a result of our previous negative actions. Even the far-reaching rays of the sun and moon do not penetrate this place. The pure light from fire, jewels, lightning, and the stars also do not penetrate this place. Neither do the light rays of Indra, Brahma, or the demigods shine through. Yet today this house is bright with a beauty that resembles the sun. Our minds are filled with joy, and our bodies feel at ease and soothed. Even the rain of warm sand falling on my body feels cool. It is clear that the one who practiced good conduct for many millions of eons is walking towards the Bodhi tree. Quick, go get beautiful Naga flowers, fine and sweet-smelling clothes, pearl necklaces, ornaments and bracelets, powders, and our finest incense. Offer him the melodious sounds of song and music, and beat the finest drums. Go now. Make offerings to the benefactor, who is worthy of everyone's respect. Kalika then stood up and with the Naga daughters looked in the four directions. He saw the Bodhisattva, shining with splendor like the central mountain. He was surrounded by millions of gods, demigods, Brahma, Indra, and the Yaksas. Joyfully they venerated him and showed him the way. The king of the Nagas became overjoyed and respectfully made offerings to the Supreme One in the world. With devotion, he prostrated at the sage's feet and stood in front of him. The Naga daughters also joyfully and respectfully venerated the sage. They scattered flowers, incense, and perfumes and played music. Overjoyed with the Lord's perfect qualities, the king of the Nagas joined his palms. Guide, the best in the world, wonderful to see your face like the full moon. As I saw the omens foretelling the previous stages, I see the very same signs in you. Today you will conquer Mara's army and attain your desired state. This is why in the past you practiced discipline, generosity, and restraint, and gave up all possessions. This is why you cultivated discipline, ethical conduct, love, compassion, and the power of forbearance. This is why you were diligent, steadfast, delighting in concentration, and letting your insight blaze. Today, all your aspirations will be fulfilled, and you shall become victorious.
Since other trees with their leaves, flowers, and fruits bow to the Bodhi tree, since 1,000 vases filled with water emulate you, since hosts of casa birds, overjoyed, make affectionate sounds, since flocks of swans and cranes playfully take to the sky and joyfully circle clockwise above the sage, today you will become a worthy one. Since hundreds of Buddha realms are filled with beautiful golden light, since the lower realms in their entirety come to a halt and the suffering of beings ceases, since showers fall in the abodes of the sun and the moon and a soft breeze blows, today you will become a leader who delivers beings from birth and old age in the three realms. Since the gods give up their delight and pleasure and come to venerate you, since Brahma and the gods of the Brahmapurita class abandon the bliss of concentration, and likewise all the others in the three realms arrive here, today you will become the king of physicians, who delivers beings from birth and old age in the three realms. Since the path that you walk on today has been swept by the gods, a path that the lords Krakuchanda, Kanakumuni, and Kasyapa also traversed. Since in your footsteps stainless and perfect lotuses spring forth, breaking out of the earth, onto which you tread with powerful steps, today you will become a worthy one. Trillions of demons, as many as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, are unable to move you from under the branches of the Bodhi tree or to shake you. You have made billions of offerings, as many as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, always acting for the benefit of the world. This is why you shine here today.
The planets, the moon, the stars, and the sun may fall from the sky to the ground. The mightiest mountains may move from their places, and oceans may dry up. Some learned person might magically display each of the four elements, yet it is impossible that you would go to the king of trees and before attain awakening. Guide, in seeing you, I have fortuitously obtained great prosperity. I have made offerings to you, spoken of your qualities, and strive for awakening. May I and all my Naga wives and children become free from this existence. Your gait is like the walk of an elephant in rut. May we walk like you. Monks, at this point, Savarna Prasvashasa, the chief queen of Kaliki, the Naga king, came to see the Bodhisattva. She was surrounded and escorted by many Naga girls who were holding various types of cloth, parasols made of assorted jewels, different pearl necklaces, a variety of precious jewels, an array of garlands, a myriad unguents and powders made by gods and humans, in containers with diverse perfumes. The Naga girls attended to the Bodhisattva while they sang melodious songs accompanied by music. In this way, as the Bodhisattva proceeded on his way, they besprinkled him with showers of flowers made of various jewels and praised him with these verses. You unerring, fearless, confident, and brave. You are not depressed, but intrepid, joyous, and hard to dominate. You are not attached, not angry, not deluded and without desire. You are dispassionate and liberated. Homage to you, O great sage. You are a physician who removes pain and a guide for those who need guidance. You are the supreme physician who liberates beings from suffering. Considering those without refuge or protection, you have manifested as a home and a refuge in the threefold world. Since this congregation of gods is pleased and joyful, they cause a great rain of flowers to fall from the sky. Since they toss down plenty of the finest cloth, you will become victorious today. So be joyful. Approach the Lord of Trees and sit there without fear. Conquer Mara's army and become free from the web of disturbing emotions, just as the victorious lords of the past attained awakening.
Next line.
Then please wait a moment, O great ocean of qualities of immeasurable glory. I
Wait,
myself.
no, you missed a line. I'm sorry. The top of the page.
So you will also obtain supreme, sacred, and peaceful awakening.
For many millions of eons you have aimed for this. For the sake of liberating beings, you have gone through hardship. Now the time has come for your wishes to be fulfilled. So go to the Lord of Trees, connect with the supreme awakening. Monks, the Bodhisattva then thought to himself, where did the previous thus gone ones sit when they attained unsurpassed, genuine, and perfect awakening? They sat on a bed of grass. At that point, hundreds of thousands of gods from the pure realms descended into the atmosphere. They knew the Bodhisattva's thoughts and said, yes, that is how it is, holy man. That is correct. The previous thus gone ones used the seed of grass as they attained unsurpassed, genuine, and perfect awakening. Monks, at the right side of the road, the Bodhisattva now noticed a grass seller, whose name was Swastika, who was busy cutting grass. The grass was green, soft, fresh, and beautiful. It coiled to the right and resembled the neck of a peacock. It was soft to the touch as divine cloth, with the sweetest scent and the most beautiful color. At this sight, the Bodhisattva left the road, and he went to the grass seller, Swastika, and spoke to him with sweet words. His words were authoritative, informative, and clear. His speech was uninterrupted, captivating, and pleasant to hear. It was affectionate, worthy to be remembered, encouraging, satisfying, and delightful. His words were not harsh. They were free from stammering, and they had no animosity. They were not erratic, but smooth, gentle, sweet, and pleasant to the ear. It was a speech that delighted both body and the mind, and cleared away all attachment, anger, delusion, strife, and quarrels. His voice was like the call of the cuckoo bird, the kunala bird, and the partridge. It sounded like a drum or melodious chant. It caused no harm, but was true, clear, and genuine. His voice had a resonance like the voice of Brahma or the gushing of waves on the ocean, or the sound of rocks hitting against each other. It was a voice praised by the kind Lord of gods and the Lord of demigods. It was hard to measure its profundity and depth. It seemed powerful demons. It made powerful demons powerless and eliminated opposing doctrines. He spoke with the strength of the lion's roar, the neighing of a horse, the trumpeting of an elephant, and with a voice resounding like that of a Naga. His voice was like the clapping of the thundercloud, pervading all Buddha realms in the 10 directions. It roused all sentient beings in need of guidance, was unconfused, harmless, and without hesitation. It was appropriate, logical, spoken at the right time, and in a timely manner, and contained hundreds of thousands of teachings. It was smooth, unimpeded, and with uninterrupted eloquence. He spoke with a single voice, yet was heard in all languages. His voice caused all meanings to be known, produced all types of happiness, demonstrated the path to liberation, proclaimed the accumulations necessary for the path, did not ignore his audience, pleased all retinue, and conformed with the teachings of all Buddhas.
It was with such words spoken in verse that the Bodhisattva addressed the grass seller, Svastika. Svastika, quick, hand me the grass. Today this grass will be very meaningful to me. Once I have conquered Mara and his armies, I will experience the peace of unexcelled awakening. That peace for the sake of which, for many thousands of eons, I have practiced generosity, constraint, renunciation, and ethical and disciplined conduct, as well as austerities. That peace will come to fruition today. The power of forbearance and the power of diligence, the power of concentration, the power of insight, the power of merit, the power of realization, and the power of liberation. Today I will accomplish these. The power of insight and the power of means, the power of miracles and unattached love, the power of correct discernment and complete truth. Today I will accomplish those. If today you grant me this grass, you shall reap the power of limitless merit. For you, this is none other than a sign heralding that you will become an unsurpassed teacher. Svastika, hearing these beautiful and sweet words spoken by the guide, became joyful, elated, and thrilled with delight. Taking a sheaf of soft grass, a soft, fresh, and tender grass, he stood before the Bodhisattva and spoke these words, his heart overflowing with joy. If this grass can help you attain the supreme state of immortality, the awakening, supremely peaceful, so hard to find, the path that previous Buddhas traversed, then please wait a moment, O great ocean of qualities of immeasurable glory. I myself shall awaken first to the supreme state of immortality.
Bodhisattva replied, Swastika, without practicing disciplined conduct and austerities for many eons, you will not attain awakening by sitting on seed of fine grass. Yet when an intelligent person is elevated through the tools of insight and merit, then the sages make a prediction and say, you will later become a stainless victorious one. Swastika, if it were possible to hand awakening to another being by making awakening into a lump of alms food, I would surely grant this to everyone. When I attain awakening, you should know that I will distribute immortality. You must come, listen, and apply yourself to the teaching, and then you will become stainless. The guide took a bundle of soft and perfect grass. As he departed with the stride of a lion and a swan, the earth shook. The multitudes of gods and Nagas joined their palms, rejoiced, and thought, today he will conquer the hordes of demons and gain immortality. Monks, as the Bodhisattva was walking toward the Bodhi tree, the gods and Bodhisattvas realized that this was the moment when the Bodhisattva, having sat there, would attain awakening and become truly perfect awakened one. Accordingly, they decided to decorate another 80,000 Bodhi trees. Some of the Bodhi trees were made of flowers and were 100,000 leagues high. Other Bodhi trees were made of odoriferous substances and were 200,000 leagues high. Some Bodhi trees were made of sandalwood and were 300,000 leagues high. Still other Bodhi trees were made of cloth and were 500,000 leagues high. Some Bodhi trees were made of jewels and were 1,000,000 leagues high. Other Bodhi trees were made of all sorts of jewels and were 1,000,000,000,000 leagues high. At the root of each of these Bodhi trees, they erected a suitable lion throne, draped in various kinds of divine cloth. By some of the Bodhi trees, they also prepared a lotus throne, or a throne made of fragrant substances, or a throne made of various precious materials.
The Bodhisattva now rested evenly in the absorption known as playful array. As soon as the Bodhisattva began to rest in this absorption of playful array, immediately an identical Bodhisattva appeared, with his body beautifully adorned, with all the excellent marks and representations, sitting upon each of the lion thrones, at the root of each of the Bodhi trees. At that point, the Bodhisattvas and the gods each perceived that the Bodhisattva was resting in equilibrium upon their particular lion thrones, and not on those set forth by the others. The power of the Bodhisattva's absorption of playful array produced similar perceptions in the beings in hell, those born as animals, those living in the realm of the Lord of Death, all gods and humans, and all other beings, regardless of their forms of existence. All beings now witness the Bodhisattva sitting on the lion throne at the root of the Bodhi tree. Nevertheless, in order to also satisfy the intellect of those who lack dedication, the Bodhisattva picked up the bundle of grass, went to the Bodhi tree, and circumambulated it 7 times. The Lord then arranged the grass so that the ends of the grass pointed up inward and that the roots pointed outward. In this way, he arranged for himself a very fine seat of grass. He then sat down like a lion, like a hero, in a powerful way, in a steady way, in a diligent way, in a forceful way, like an elephant, like a lord in a natural manner, like a wise person, like an unsurpassed person, like a special one, like an exalted one, like a famous one, like one full of praise, like a generous person, like a disciplined person, like a forbearing person, like a diligent person, like a concentrated person, like an insightful being, in a wise manner, in a meritorious manner, like someone who has conquered the attacks of demons, and like someone who has perfected the accumulations. In this way, he sat down on the grass seat and crossed his legs facing toward the east. He then straightened his back, collected himself one-pointedly, and formed this firm resolve. On this seat, my body may wither and rot, and my skin, my bones, and my flesh may dissolve. Yet until I attain awakening, so hard to find even through many eons, I will not move my body from this seat. This concludes the 19th chapter on approaching the seat of awakening. Any comments or questions?
I found this very moving. Some of the paragraphs were just so pointed and concise. They almost move you to tears if you really contemplate them. And really, I think get to the message of inspiring what it means to be bodhicitta as well, the preciseness of some of the paragraphs.
Yes, thank you. What do you think the significance of the Naga king and the Nagas in general? Who are the Nagas? And why do they, they always have a very moving comments or speeches or requests to make of them. Does anybody know who the Nagas represent, what the Nagas are? Maybe Barney can answer that.
Yeah, this is a good question. I was going to ask about it. They often come in the stories.
Well, okay, I can't say too much about Nagas. They're generally considered to be beings who live in the water, lakes or oceans, and they're sort of like dragons. I always pictured them as being similar to dragons, not Western dragons, but Chinese dragons. And the idea is that they are wealthy and they guard treasures. So each Naga is sort of a custodian of different treasures, and they often wind up in the sutras coming to the Buddha and presenting themselves for either to receive the teaching or to offer a treasure. Now, they're considered the highest beings of the animal realm, but other than that, I really could not say. Obviously, they're mythological creatures. They also are considered to govern the weather, so rain especially. So if you want to ask for rain, you can ask the Nagas for their help in traditional Buddhism. And there are offerings. There are offering prayers that are made, at least in Tibetan Buddhism, to the Nagas. I remember once, what's his name? Oh, I'm so terrible with names. Lama Dawa went to the shores of the Chesapeake Bay to make an offering ceremony to the Nagas of the Chesapeake Bay. And I recall this might be mistaken, but I think there was a problem in the monastery at Karmatriana Dharma Chakra. They didn't have a reliable well. So before they tried to dig a new well, which actually was successful, they performed a ceremony, offering ceremony to the Nagas of the property. So that's the kind of the mythological lore of the Nagas, as far as I know it.
Thank you. Did anybody look it up in the glossary? So if you look up, it's G400. Somebody want to recite that for everybody?
I can. A class of non-human beings who live in subterranean aquatic environments where they guard wealth and sometimes also teachings. Nagas are associated with serpents and have a snake-like appearance. In Buddhist art and in written account, they are regularly portrayed as half human and half snake, and they are also said to have the ability to change into human form. Some Nagas are Dharma protectors, but they can also bring retribution if they are disturbed. They may likewise fight one another, wage war, and destroy the lands of others by causing lightning, hail, and flooding.
So do you think that Nagas are a metaphor, or do you think they literally exist? Or are they a metaphor, as a particular qualities of human beings in a particular state of mind?
Well,
I think they're metaphors.
Okay.
But I'm a Western empiricist. That's my bias, and I want to believe. I want to be wrong. And to hear Bernie mention Buddhism in the Chesapeake Bay made my evening. So thank you, Bernie.
So I always thought of them as nature spirits that rule the element of water. And of course, I have absolutely no evidence that such beings exist. But supposedly there are beings that rule each of the four traditional elements: fire, air, water, and earth. So Nagas, in my way of thinking, are the nature spirits that rule the element of water.
That actually makes sense.
Well, the thing that they're half human and half, reptile.
That's how they're pictured, right?
Yes, I mean, does that give any credence to the fact that they have a rulership, or is it that they are confused beings who, who are kind of binding things up, who are kind of tying things up? And it's through, appealing to them, appealing to that nature in order to be able to release it from that confusion, that human quality that we're talking to ourselves, that Naga quality that we have ourselves.
Uh, I, well, I told you what I think. I mean, we're all confused beings. Certainly, I'm a confused being, and Nagas are confused beings as well, and that they aren't enlightened. But as with most beings, when they see a great spiritual being or a great person, they are impressed. And that's how they come to be in the presence of the Buddha. Anyway, that's my opinion. You can take Nagas as a metaphor. And as I recall, like I say, I think of Nagas mythologically as sort of like dragons. And that the movie by Joseph Campbell, he sort of talked about them as ruling the lowest chakra, the base chakra. I forget, it's the Muladhara chakra. I forget
The root chakra.
The root chakra, and that they are
In the Hindu tradition.
right. They are guardians of wealth and traditionally virgins. Dragons are, but they can't make any use of either of them. So,
Okay. Anybody else have a comment about that?
Oh, and we should remember that when Buddha was achieving enlightenment, there was this cobra, giant cobra that was raising behind him. Maybe that's coming later in the story, but the cobra was protecting him from rain and something like that, at least in some stories. And I guess Nagas, I just thought in the other glossary, Nagas were also like the kings of those cobras in India, at least. So I think they're like Buddha's protectors. The highest animals that are there that like semi-god like, but so they offer their protection and benevolence to Buddha with great respect. That seemed to be the meaning.
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting to research this, to look at this, because Nagas are something that goes through, so much of this mythology, through these stories and everything. So to, get an understanding, at least for some time and space, to get an understanding, and maybe that understanding will change over time. Yes, Gunga.
So I think Joseph Campbell also said that the snake was an image of kind of rebirth because the snake sheds its skin. So there's this idea that snakes kind of overcome death because they're able to shed their skin, like shedding a life. And he also talks about the ocean being a symbol of the unconscious. I think Carl Jung talks about that as well too, as going into the deep unconscious or the subconscious is kind of like going into the ocean of your consciousness, and that's where the archetypes and in these things, these images that connect you with all of humanity and nature kind of exist. So if you're thinking about the Buddha, getting ready to take his seat for his final quest into enlightenment, this could be, we could think of this metaphorically, I guess, as him, getting wet in those, or maybe already being familiar with those elements of the unconscious, and that's something that helps with our journey, kind of being aware of our nature, in a deep. I think that's meditation helps us with kind of getting used to our automatic impulses, and the ways that we deal with reality without thinking about it. Maybe that's a symbol of him being aware of those things, already being familiar with that type of consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Well, let me draw your attention to 19.22 and the charnel ground. And, this line in 1922, well, I'll read the whole verse. It says, "In this way, the gods who guarded the seat of awakening magically manifested such displays at that place. They were so magnificent that when the gods, Nagas, Yaksas, Gandharvas, and demigods witnessed them, they began to conceive of their own abodes as nothing more than charnel grounds. As they saw the displays, they felt great respect and exclaimed with joy, 'How great! What an inconceivable manifestation of meritorious ripening this is.'" So the charnel ground is an interesting part of the imagery of Tantric Buddhism. Maybe it goes into other types of Buddhism. Maybe that's a wrong thing to say, but the charnel ground is an interesting place. Does anybody have a comment about charnel ground? You know what that is? Kunga, would you explain it?
I believe it's where the bodies are placed after they've died so that they can disintegrate in the open air.
So they're a place of sky burials. But they also could be, cremations. They also could be, cemeteries of burying bodies. But mostly they're thought of as the sky burials, for the animals to come and devour, the vultures and so on, or the jackals and so on that would come in. And so it's a way of, continuing life, in the charnel ground. But there's another, but to look at it from a broader scope of something, it's going to, it's the transformation of your physical body, leaving it behind to feed other physical bodies. But then what's also being released is the home of the spirit body. It has no place to go now, other than, someplace that it was directed and so on. So the charnel ground is very important, to think about in our development as purifying. That the charnel ground is the place where we're going through this process of transformation, I think is the point here.
It reminds me, especially all the descriptions of, things being jeweled and decorated and garlanded, that I think that in a lot of the Buddhist literature, that imagery is used to connote spiritual accomplishment. So the idea that, this is a spiritual journey in contrast to the physical journey. The physical journey ends in the charnel ground. The spiritual journey goes on beyond that. And that all these palaces and things, when compared to the fruits of the spiritual journey, they're like charnel grounds. They're impermanent. They're going to disappear. And I thought, when you're talking about that, it made me think about the practice, going to the charnel grounds and meditating on impermanence as a way for people to encourage their practice, because they're reminded how much little time they have to practice, and just encourage disattachment to the body. When you start to see how the body breaks down, then you can get over lust for the body. When you start to see it be exposed to all the breakdown and changes, seeing the body from the inside out does a lot to overcome lust. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Without getting too much caught up in the minutiae of things, but, a mandala, when we see a mandala, the different images of the mandala, and it's, a mandala is like a palace. And each of these deities, have a mandala that has levels on it. And on each of the levels are the associated family, if you will, of that particular deity, and the challenges and the way that it rose up, to be able to overcome those particular challenges and so on. And the core, the center of the mandala is the essence of what that deity is. So we have a mandala. We need to, develop our own mandala. That's what we're doing, but we're looking at it in a spiritual term when we say, our own palace, our own mandala, like that, and so on. And around that whole mandala is like a shell, like an egg shell. And in the center of the egg is the mandala that you want to be at, the core of that. But that shell that goes around it is the charnel ground. And that you have to pierce through the charnel ground. And there's elements of the charnel ground that are all areas of purification. And you have to penetrate that to be able to get to the mandala. So there's a purification process that's in place, is my point. Once you get to the mandala, then there's further purification as you rise up, in terms of up and down in that way. So the charnel ground is that piercing through that shell that we create for ourselves. Yes, Brendan.
I'm so glad we're talking about charnel ground, because it reminds me of Dharma and Hell by Fleet Maull, which is one of my favorite Dharma writers. But he actually has a very interesting take on charnel ground. I've been waiting for a couple of years to share this. So he says the charnel ground is a metaphor for any environment where suffering is present. A Japanese hospital, a schoolroom, a violent home, a mental institution, a homeless shelter, a refugee camp, even a space of privilege like the corporate boardroom or Wall Street trading floor can be a charnel ground. Really, any place that is tainted by fear, depression, anger, despair, disrespect, or deceit is a charnel ground, including our own mind.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. Yes. So in many of the practices, the charnel ground is an object of the meditation, to pierce through that to be able to get to the next level, so to speak. And then in the tantric, the chud practice. I don't know if anybody's been seen that or heard about that. Yes. Or something like that. And it's a visualization of your body being cut into pieces and being offered to those birds and those animals that would eat the body and so on like that. So it's a purification through, cutting yourself off from the attachment to your body. The body's the most precious thing we have. And so to be able to defeat that attachment is to go through this process of the chud practice where we're, visually cutting it up, in our minds. We're imagining that and so on, and making the offerings and so on. So it's a very serious practice to do.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. This is I didn't quite understand why would there be such a practice, but now it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And to put it in perspective of our planning for our death, do we plan for that? How do we plan for that? Do we leave it to our loved ones that we leave behind when we pass, that they have to take care of the body and everything? Or do you make a plan for what's going to happen to the body? And there's a whole thing about that, making a Dharma box, that has prayers, has different objects, has a blanket in there to cover the body and so on, to prepare it, and then instructions for what you might want to have done and so on. So it's good stuff, and it's purifying stuff. I got another point that I'd like to bring up, and that is, in particular, in 19.46. It's in a couple other places, but I happen to have it right here in front of me. And Kalika, the Dharma, the Naga king, is speaking, and is talking about the light of Krakuchanda, and Kanakamuni, and Kashyapa. So each of those appear in the glossary. So Krakuchanda is G306, and then Kankamuni is 289, G.289, and Kashyapa is G293. So those three are the prior Buddhas, are the great Buddhas like Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni is the Buddha of our era, so to speak, our kalpa, our time. But these three other Buddhas came before that. So I don't have a great deal of information. You can read it and everything. Maybe Bernie has more comment about that. But the point I wanted to get to is, what makes Shakyamuni important is not just that he's the Buddha of our time, but what is it that is different about Buddha Shakyamuni than from the other three Buddhas? Bernie, you have any comment about that?
I really don't have much comment about the previous Buddhas, except Kashyapa was the one. These names, the names I remember are Dipankara and Kashyapa. So,
well, that's another name for Kashyapa, is Dipankara.
Dipankara, right?
Yeah.
Kashyapa seems to be a very common name because there's several of the Buddhist disciples were named Kashyapa as well. Dipankara is what light of Dipankara, something like lamp of something in Sanskrit. I really don't know much about the previous Buddhists except the saying that's in the Dhammapada is attributed to him. Cease to do evil, learn to do good, and purify the mind. This is the teachings of all the Buddhas, supposedly was spoken by Dipankara. Other than that, I really can't say much about the previous Buddhas.
Well, here in the glossary, I just was looking it up, I just was refreshing my memory, and it just says that it's a past Buddha.
Right.
And that Buddha Shakyamuni is said to be the fourth Buddha. Is that correct?
The fourth Buddha of this world period, right?
Yeah. So you know, what I've heard, what my understanding, and maybe Kunga has some more to say about this, but um, Shakyamuni brought the gift of how to liberate oneself. The previous Buddhas were defining the suffering and so on like that, but did not offer the Four Noble Truths. And Buddha Shakyamuni is the one, that's the gift of Buddha Shakyamuni, is being able to articulate the way out, the cessation from the suffering.
Well, I will say traditionally that it's said that only two Buddhas in this world period will teach the Tantra, and one of them was Shakyamuni Buddha. So the first Shakyamuni Buddha and the last Buddha are supposedly.
And that's Maitreya.
No, Maitreya is the next one. He won't teach Tantra. But the last Buddha of the 1,000 Buddhas of this eon will teach Tantra as well.
Would that be Padmasambhava?
No, if I recall the name correctly, it's Rochana. I might be getting that incorrectly, but that's the tradition at least. And the reason why I asked that question, why, he said to Kempo Carter, and he said it was because beings in this current eons are so deluded that the only way they can attain enlightenment is through the powerful teachings like the Tantra. But in other times, the people will not be so deluded, and they will be able to attain enlightenment just through the other teachings of the Buddha. So that will not be necessary to teach the Tantra during the careers of the other Buddhas. So.
All right. Well, I invite investigation for that. I look at this personally. This is my take on all of this. This is the human experience, and everything is a metaphor for being a human, and being able to process that, is the Dharma. That's what we're doing, and Buddha Shakyamuni is giving us a structure in which to do that. But to understand all these words and so on, all these concepts. Yes, Kunga.
So what I had read was that these prior was interesting. What I remember is that all these prior Buddhas followed the same life pattern as the current Buddha. They were all born to, wealthy parents. Their mother died after giving birth. They left home. They had chariot rides. They saw the four sights. They went to the Tree of Enlightenment. They had very similar type lives, like an archetype life. They lived longer periods, and they had different lengths of teaching. But the sort of outline of their life was very similar from what I remember. Thank you. And they give all their names. I mean, they all have all their names and their wives and their clans' names and their children's names are all provided in the sutra for many, many of these prior Buddhas. It's pretty interesting.
We're here in what we're reading now, 19.56, 57, 58. It kind of brings some things together and mentions those three Buddhas again. But it also mentions the gods, Brahma, and the gods of the Brahma Purohita class that abandon the bliss of concentration. They're gods, they have great ability, they have great, accomplishment and so on, but at the same time, they don't go to the level of supreme concentration or absorption, and so they remain at a level that is not quite enlightened. And here it's interesting because in 19.56 it says, and likewise all the others in the three realms arrive here It says, today you will become the king of physicians who delivers beings from birth and old age in the three realms. And the king of physicians is Sangye Menla, the Buddha, the healing Buddha. So here, and that's a big threshold, and Medicine Buddha is there to bring healing, to show healing, to lead beings to healing, to become doctors themselves, physicians themselves, and so on. So this is like a passage, to be doing that. So in the Sangye Menla sadhana, the practice that we do, there's the 12 aspirations of the Bodhisattva to become Medicine Buddha, and included in there are these aspirations for the benefit of all beings. It doesn't make a difference whether they're considered to be Buddhists or Dharma practitioners or anything like that.
Lance, I wanted to also discuss the seed of grass. There seem to be a lot of verses devoted to the seed of grass. And to me, it kind of points that it actually doesn't take much to achieve enlightenment, that you just sit on something soft and stay there, focus, and it'll come to you. But of course, should be also a lot of preparation. But I think it kind of reminds that you don't need any fancy, building or carpet or cushion. Grass will work for everyone just as well. That's not the point, the seat or how it is arranged. The point is that we have to sit there and stay unmovable. We have to tame our senses, desires, and emotions.
You also
Mind.
don't need to download an app to your cell phone.
Yeah, that's a great relief.
Well, it's interesting in here, and I'm looking through the book, and I had some notes about this too. And in around 19.67, 1966, 1967, that page and everything, it's talking about the grass and so on. And then it also talks about swastika, was the grass seller. He sells the grass. He obviously grows it, cultivates it, and sells it and so on. And the image of the swastika, as we call the swastika or the swastika or the shravasti, is the eternal knot. In the 8 auspicious symbols, one of them is the shravasti. And if you remember, I made an association with the eternal knot, with that shravasti, with the right livelihood, your connection with society, and to have the right job at the right time. And those jobs can change and so on, but it's a thing where we're exchanging our abilities to be able to do things as a human being with other beings. We can't be everything to everybody. We can't be everything to ourselves, but we can take on these jobs that we do, and we're getting the benefit of other people doing their jobs, and we're sharing the benefit of our jobs to them, and so on like that. So this being the grass, this being the foundation on which the Buddha or the Bodhisattva is sitting, to be able to rise from that the livelihood of being a human being, being a pure human being, and allowing that to be our bed and arising from that, I think is interesting imagery.
Yeah, I guess it points to the value of all members of the society. You know, it kind of the monks would not be able to, you know, advance as well if lay people would not be there to help. And lay people also will be very confused if monks were not there to give teachings. So and kind of provide guidance. So that is a good picture there. Well,
So in the section on 19.71 through the rest of that page is the conversation that the Bodhisattva is having with Svastika, you know, about the grass and so on. It's very 19.76. Swatika says, hearing these beautiful and sweet words spoken by the guide, became joyful, elated, and thrilled with delight. Taking a sheath of soft, fresh, and tender grass, he stood before the Bodhisattva and spoke these words, his heart overflowing with joy. If this grass can help you attain the supreme state of immortality, the awakening supremely peaceful, so hard to find, the path that perceives that previous Buddhas traversed, that they too sat on grass. Then please wait a moment, O great ocean of qualities of immeasurable glory. I myself shall awaken first to the supreme state of immortality. So anyway, so my point again is that there's a lot of really great metaphor in here. There's a lot of great stuff that's in here to think about. And in this one pass, in this one time in our lives, reading this and everything, but to come back to it next year or the year after that or 5 years after that or something like that, after you've done a lot of other practices and absorbed a lot of other teachings and so on, and then to bring it back and relate it to these things is very, very powerful, very meaningful. It's not a read once and forget it.
So I want to mention one thing. The thing that struck me as the maybe odd is too strong, but unusual is in the description of the qualities. They always said curled to the right, you know, which I assume means clockwise. But anybody want to make a comment why that is desirable, the curl to the right rather than to curl to the left?
Wasn't that how the Buddha's hair was curled?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the idea that
You're
curling
supposed
to the
to-
right is better than curling to the left. Clockwise being, I assume that's because it's the same direction that the sun goes, so it's considered good. But
I thought it had to do with the GI tract emptying out, like it's some kind of energy flow with the GI tract.
so yeah,
well,
anybody-
there
Yeah.
are many things in nature that spiral one particular way, or at least like 99.99% of the time, like some snails and conch shells, they always spiral a certain way. So there is a one way that is natural to spiral, and the other way that is kind of like counter nature.
And do you remember which way is more natural? I never looked at a snail shell seriously, but
I think it's clockwise. And in the
Clockwise?
film we saw Inner Wisdom, Outer Wisdom, you know, and it had a whole section in there, a 20-minute section on spirals.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like the blood circulates from the heart to other places in the body, it's going to be circulating in one particular cycle, not the opposite one. So And the molecule, if you go down to the molecules, biological molecules, they're all asymmetric, and only one mirror image of those molecules are sustaining life, and the other is like interfering with life, really. So there is this. Nobody knows why, really, but but somehow nature prefers one way, not its mirror image. Yeah, so I guess one of those is
I think
nature.
there's another interesting thing, and we're taught, to use, in our tradition, in the Kagyu tradition, we're taught to use the beads, the mala beads, in our left hand, and we're pulling the beads onto our left arm, and it's coming up, and it was explained that it's closest to the heart. Then the blessings that are from the mantras that you're reciting and so on coming, then circle the heart in a clockwise direction, and then go out through the right hand, and the right hand is giving. The left hand is bringing in the blessings, and the right hand is sending out the blessings in the form of compassion and method for the benefit of other beings. So that circling to the right, to me, is an example of that.
I was trying to figure out why, as Kanga mentioned, all these different Buddhas had similar life stories. And I think Alex just explained it. Nature just preferred it that way, right? It's kind of like, so I thought that's pretty cool. In Tibet, if you're circumambulating Mount Meru, you were to go clockwise. But there's one exception to that. If you are of the Bon tradition, then they go counterclockwise. Yeah.
Right. And and some of the wrathful practices, even in the Kagyu tradition or something, then things are reversed.
Yeah, I guess we can think of it. One is related to like storing and accumulation of something, and the other is like dispensing or using up stuff. So maybe that direction of turning facilitates a certain mode of action. That may be also connected to how our brains are wired and all that.
So I think maybe, the way we're talking about this, which I think is very healthy, and it goes to 19.82, where it's talking about the playful array. And the Bodhisattva is now rested evenly in the absorption known as the playful array. So in other words, he's bringing forth all his accumulated thoughts and knowledge and experience and so on. And it's that he's offering, to be able to transcend, but it's part of phenomenal nature. It's part of being a human being. And it doesn't say that you're discarding it or you're throwing it away, that you're annihilating it. No, you're bringing it onto the path. And you're seeing how the human being is all part of this. This is the resolve of the Bodhisattva, to bring all this together. This is instruction for all human beings to follow this pathway. It's not the only pathway. You can follow other pathways, but here is a very explicit pathway that you can follow to attain that liberation, that enlightenment, that awakening. That all these things are all part of being a human being. The Buddha and Buddhas is not something supernatural. It's all within ourselves.
Yeah, this Buddha multiplication is very curious kind of phenomena. I think it's often I mean, in many stories, it's mentioned that Buddha was displaying several kinds of miracles as kind of to assert his achievement of his heightened state and knowledge and wisdom, and for some reason it often mentioned that this power of multiplying himself in many appearances is always there, and I'm not sure what to make of this, but apparently it's not easy. Apparently it's like one of the highest magic feats that one could ever accomplish in Eastern traditions.
Well, I think, in the Bodhisattva prayer, taking the Bodhisattva vow, or, cultivating bodhicitta, it says, until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. So it's all this, this illustration, if you will, of all these Buddhas and so on we take refuge in that to help us to understand it's the personification of the energy. To say it's all energy is very abstract, but to give it these personifications of activities of that energy, now it gives you something more of an object to be able to focus on and be able to see within yourself and so on. It's like the visualization of the indestructible diamond, that each one of the aspects is a different Buddha, is a different activity of Buddha. Buddha nature. You know one Buddha, you know all the Buddhas, the essence of the Buddhas. The only thing that's different between them is the way in which they actualize that bodhicitta, through their body, speech, and mind.
Those different, that imagery where where all the Buddha verses are made into one verse and everything is present, it made me think about just the image of Indra's net. In the each jewel in the net reflects all the other jewels, and that idea of interdependence, and each thing in the relative world reflects all the other things and is interdependent with them. It seems to me that a lot of times in the sutras that imagery where many things are made, as large things are made small, or small things are made large, or many things are included in one thing, or one thing is reflective of many things, all has to do with that, reinforcing that idea of interdependence. Thank you.
Could that be like a matrix?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, a matrix is what? Having things that are all interconnected with each other things. All the, isn't that the point of a matrix?
Well, yeah, I mean, everything is interconnected.
Barney, what do you think about that? Thinking of it as a matrix, is that a valid description?
You ask me? Well, I can't say. When I hear the word matrix, I always think of mathematics because that and physics are my background, and that's not the common sense of the word. And
Bernie, I was thinking of Keanu Reeves.
oh yeah, you're thinking of the movie The Matrix.
Yeah. Brendan,
Matrix
aren't you
just
laughing?
generally means the ground out of which something emerges. In the common sense, that's my feeling about it. It's like it's like womb, but a little more mechanical than biological. So it's the ground out of which something else appears. And I mean, in Buddhism, they always talk about the, now I'm try the different causes and conditions, the four causes. And the idea is that I always found very interesting is that at least traditionally in Buddhism, every other thing in the universe is considered the cause. Each thing in the universe is considered the result of everything else in the universe. So everything else in the universe goes into being part of the cause of everything else. So everything is interconnected and interwoven at that level. There's no two things which are isolated from each other in the traditional idea of Buddhist cause and effect. There's the principal cause, but in addition to that principal cause, everything else in the universe is considered to be part of the cause of everything else. That's all I had to say.
And I might add that in mathematics, matrix is also interconnected. It connects the rows and the columns of numbers, basically. I mean, that's the idea that.
I always think of matrix in mathematical sense as being some kind of linear transformation. So
Yes,
matrix
right.
represents a linear transformation of one system to the other. Generally, you're talking about moving from typically from one coordinate system to another, which is
Right.
Which is how I
But
used it in my career. Oh my God, we don't want to hear about this, but yeah, I've done so many matrix calculations in my life, so it's in computer science writing matrix transformations. It's scary. So yeah, I know from the mathematics of matrices, but that's not the general sense of the word. I said the general sense is more like womb or out the ground out of which something really develops.
So does the matrix, in the sense that you're talking about it, Bernie, is that a solution, or is that a an example of a finite solution within many other things, many other
Well,
solutions?
in mathematics, there are different kinds of equations, and generally, the way you can represent any what they call linear transformation is through a matrix. And I mean, it's no point in going into it any more than that right now because it really isn't relevant to this text. But there are linear transformations and there are nonlinear transformations. And generally in physics, you like linear transformations for a lot of different reasons. And generally, they have to do with transformation from one system to another. You're moving a position from finding the position in one system and then moving it to other. And the biggest example of that is in special relativity, or the one that comes to mind most often. So, but it's neither here nor there. It really isn't relevant to this particular text.
So it's you could say that that is example of the emptiness of phenomena.
No. It really has nothing to do with emptiness per se. It's just a way of talking about a certain kind of
What is it?
transformation, a certain kind of transformation. But not all transformations are linear, obviously. But the, the people like linear transformations because they're easier to deal with mathematically. And they have certain nice properties, like so yeah. It's physics and math are big on linear transformations. So and matrices. So
Okay, thank you.
But I think what you were mentioning, Pema Darje, was that emptiness is very connected to interdependence.
right.
And if and things being everything is empty of a separate self because it's full of everything else in a way, from a certain perspective.
Well, that's really my point. Thank you. So, we've completed 2 of these books of the Lalitavistara Sutra. We have the 3rd one to do, which takes us through the next 10 or so chapters. And so we'll go through the steps of his, sitting down on the grass and having the going through the absorption, going through the visualizations that come up, parts of the story that we hear, and then his carrying on and beginning to teach and so on. I think the next book takes us up to and including the point where he teaches the Four Noble Truths. So I think this is very interesting, very good, and congratulations for getting through the first 2 books. It's taken us what? We've been doing this since what? The first of the year? Is that when we started doing this?
I think in February, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very noble thing, I think, that we're doing for our own personal benefit, but for the benefit of the Dharma, for the benefit of others.
Yes, it's a very inspiring read and motivating read also.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Anything you'd like to bring up?
Lance, I think it was in your White Hole of Time book where it talks about, and Alex, and Bernie, you're gonna have to tell me if I'm wrong on this. But in quantum physics, if you're observing the ray of light, it goes at light speed. But if somehow you are in the ray of light, then it's actually infinite in terms of the speed. And so we talked about bilocation earlier, and in my tradition that I was raised in, there was certain Catholic saints that had the power of bilocation, apparently, like Padre Pio. And so this whole business of everything all at once, there's no time, there's no past, there's no future, there's just the eternal present. I don't know. I'm rambling, but that reminds me of that a bit.
No, actually, in special relativity, one of the foundational principles is the speed of light is the same for all observers in all reference frames. So if you're
Right.
on a light
Right.
ray, you of course, an observer can't be traveling at the speed of light. That's not permitted in special relativity. But for any observer, they're going to see the light travel at the same speed, no matter as long as they're in a inertial frame, what they call an inertial frame. So the idea, and I don't know if that's true or not, is that for a light ray, time doesn't seem to pass at all, because as we know, time slows down as you travel faster. So when you get to the speed of light, at least theoretically, time would stop for somebody in that system. Well, it wouldn't seem to be stopped for them, but for an observer in another system, it would seem like there's no time. Anyway, I'm tired and I can't think straight, but yeah, the transformation is between different reference systems and all that stuff. It's been a while since I've thought about it. So,
well, a good illustration of that is recent images of black holes that came out. That shows light like surrounding the black hole, they call it accretion disk.
Right.
A-
Well, that I can tell
And
you about.
basically that is saying that the matter appears to be stretched and everywhere around the black holes. Effectively, this is like same piece of matter that's supposed to be localized in one place, but now it's all over, over around the
Yeah.
thing.
Well, that's general relativity. That's another step beyond special relativity, because you're talking about
Yeah.
gravitation, and I never got that far in physics to take the course on general relativity, so I can only to talk about things up through special relativity. So
But I think what they talk about is more like psychological perception rather than physical phenomena of making the light travel around some tiny black holes. You know.
yeah, well, yeah, I don't think black holes have anything to do with enlightenment. I think that's some people have tried to
Mhm.
make a connection between that, but I don't think they have anything to do with that, or quantum physics for that matter as well. It's really a separate, totally separate ideas. So sometimes people like to bring the enlightenment or mysticism together with modern physics, but I don't think really they fit together all that well. So, except that to say that the reality, whatever it is very mysterious. You can say that both physics and mysticism point to that truth.
I think the value is in exercising the mind. Like if you can wrap your mind around the quantum physics and black holes, phenomena, entropy, and all that, maybe it will be easier to understand Dharma a little bit
Yeah,
quicker
well,
or deeper.
yeah, maybe. It helps to have a flexible mind when thinking
Yeah,
and emptiness.
yeah.
Sure.
Mind that helps drop certain stereotypes, delusions about our world, and like shift in a different point of view. That sometimes it's not easy to break old habits of the mind.
All right, brothers and sister, can we leave it there? Okay.
Yes, nice evening.
Okay.
We can.
All right. Well, I think it's good to have a dedication that is, paying homage to the great masters who came before, who have got us to this point of spiritual exploration and understanding and so on, and their blessings. So, with that, on page 33, we'll recite the Kagyu lineage dedication prayer. Durje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Melorepa, Dormalur Gampopa, Pagmajupa, and Lordri Kumpa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue may I achieve omniscience. May, by defeating all enemies, confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activity spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Sri Khampa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you very much. So we'll see you next week, and hopefully everything will be good.
Good night.
Okay.
Everyone.
Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, you're muted. I can't hear you.
I'm saying thank you for not letting me fall asleep this time.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Cheery, cheery, bye-bye.
Even long days.